2015 when William Branham became science. He preached. Services were recorded on reel-to-reel tapes. Tapes were purchased and shared. He was killed in a car wreck. Doctrines and quotes were falsely created. Cassettes were sold and shared. Ministers preached after listening to tapes or reading transcripts of the tapes. The computer arrived. Tapes were transcribed to digital format. Sermons now had their own computer software. Many doctrines and quotes were found not to exist. Real doctrines were easily confirmed. At first the computer searches helped clean out the charlatans. The message was now available for anyone to search on computer or the internet. William Branham became science, history science, doctrine science, sermon idea science, gunslinger science, critics science. When a man's life can be scientifically searched and analyzed, he becomes a science project. This existed even before computers and internet, but in a more minor form. Computers magnified it. Internet imploded and exploded it. One quote becomes a doctrine. Doctrines build. The laity doesn't have the money for software or afford the needed computer for search studies. They depend on ministers. Once it was online, the laity doesn't really have the time to do search studies, so they hand it to the ministers more, who many times tell the laity that only ministers are gifted to do it. The ministers are positioned in a new place which echoes back, according to some, to pre-protestant days. Humans being openly researched is always the mixed tree of good and evil. Most things that humans make can be for good, or for evil. The internet and AI are the most obvious examples. Now a person can be picked apart. Staying neutral can be very difficult. Feeding bias is easy. So the sermons become digitally textually available. It was now time to dissect every word William Branham said from 1947 through the end of 1965, and make them all fit with a chosen or predetermined consistency. But that didn't work. Flawless superheroes only exist in movies. This is why one group decided to believe every word spoken was God talking. Others decided his opinions in those 18 years were better than any other human. Others threw in the towel and just agreed with what the ministers would say. Easy agreeism. Then the critics got inspired. Critics are beneficial. They research. They dig in. They many times have a strong distaste about who they research, so there is no fear bias in sharing what they find out. They love to say they are dismissed and free from cognitive dissonance, fancy words learned from psychology. All humans actually have a touch of that. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort a person experiences when holding conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when their actions contradict their beliefs. Essentially, it's the psychological tension that arises from holding two or more inconsistent cognitions, thoughts, beliefs, or behaviors. Cognitive dissonance is a common human experience and can influence our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. Understanding it can provide insights into how people rationalize decisions and cope with conflicting thoughts and actions. In other words, it's normal. So, William Branham had no clue he would be so thoroughly dissected. He never said to do it. He thought the current world was ending in 1977. He expected to rapture before that, around 1973/74, at his own age of around 64 years old. This itself 1977 completely disrupts the idea that he was going to become the search engine of truth, let alone the only one preaching the truth. William Branham never said to do that. He did say that people would be hearing his recordings, whoever those people were to be up to 1977. He did ask to just say what the sermons said when quoting him. He didn't say to only listen to his sermons and to only say things that he spoke. Filled right pointing pointer William Branham warned about this tendency to be the only one with truth in his book Exposition of the Church Ages, which came out 2 weeks before he was killed by the wreck. Go back to Pentecost before it is too late. But as usual, people don't heed God's warning. That revival fire built upon the sacred word is so wonderful, and the manifestation of the Spirit so blessed, that a little fear creeps in and a whisper in the heart says, how can we protect this truth we have? What can we do to see this revival goes on? That is when the Antichrist spirit comes in and whispers, look, you have the truth now, see that it doesn't get lost. Organize and set up your creed of what you believe. Put it all in a church manual. And they do it. They organize. They add to the word. An exposition of the 7 church ages. 3. The Ephesian church age. Rev. William Marion Branham. Now, each one of them, course, you could see their idea, and I cannot blame them. Each one claims that they are the truth, they have the truth. And the people that belongs to those churches should believe that, because they have staked their destination, their eternal destination, upon the teaching of that church. 19650220 God's chosen place of worship. Now we find out today, also, there is many different denominations. There is the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church. Each one of them says they're the way. See, we have the way, we're the truth. There is the Methodist, says, we have the truth. The Baptist says, we have the truth. 78 Well, to me, as long as they feel that way, it's not so, because Jesus said, I am the truth. See, 79 Therefore, as my sermon last night was, that he is the place where God put his name, the only place to worship. 19650221 Marriage and Divorce. That a little fear creeps in and a whisper in the heart says, how can we protect this truth we have? What can we do to see this revival goes on? WMB. Filled right pointing pointer The computer answered this fear of truth protection with the message search, and the engine went full power. Now the message of truth could be protected. And for many, the laity was supposed to step aside. For others, they kept the proper balance. For others, they needed more prophets. At the end of the Church Age book, William Branham was very clear. The foundational statement about his ministry is found on the last page of the Church Age book that was completed under William Branham's guidance, printed, and released 2 weeks before William Branham left. This is an extremely important statement. Not for one moment do I bring a message to the people that they may follow me, or join my church, or start some fellowship and organization. I have never done that and will not do that now. I have no interest in those things, but I do have an interest in the things of God and people, and if I can accomplish just one thing I will be satisfied. That one thing is to see established a true spiritual relationship between God and men, wherein men become new creations in Christ, filled with His Spirit and live according to His Word. I would invite, plead and warn all to hear His voice at this time, and yield your lives completely to Him, even as I trust in my heart that I have given my all to Him. God bless you, and may His coming rejoice your heart. Last paragraph of the Church Age book, December 1965. Filled right pointing pointer It is now over 45 years since 1977 was supposed to end this current world. Information technology has now rebuilt the Tower of Babel. Language is no longer a hindrance. Imagination can now be a reality, whether good or bad. Genesis 11:6 And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Welcome to 2025 Plus. All of William Branham's words have been made deity in various ways by many people and movements. Huge confusion and disappointments have been created. Many leaving simply cannot function under the twists and turns and battles and allegations and critics and threats and proofs and sub-proofs, etc. The young people take the hardest hits. Submit or, like anything in Christianity, charlatans abound. William Branham's words have not been spared from this open Pandora box. The message of the hour, as it is called, is truly become a grafted mixed tree. There are so many versions of belief all grafted into the same, quotes, of William Branham. These grafts, there is one facet that believes every word on the recordings, now in MP3 format, are, "Thus saith the Lord." This is why these individuals redefine the word, pastor, and thus declare that William Branham is their pastor. Others have his words bordering infallible, and therefore it requires that only the ministers can put them together properly because only they are gifted. Others make William Branham God or Jesus. Others are in categories of thought that truly are imaginations in religious and spiritual ways. Others make William Branham as the first son of God to mature, or the sheath wave offering of the Old Testament harvest, and everyone has to be like him or grow to be like him. Others believe he is the only voice of God to lead Christians into the rapture. And there are a multitude of others that have their own understandings. When studying William Branham, he is so clear on what the attention should be directed towards. This is why the foundational statement at the end of the Church Ages book is so important. Whatever conclusion is made about William Branham, it must be built on his own statement. And since it was his only book of doctrines and final statement he gave to the world, his beliefs should be built from that one book. And that one book clearly states what William Branham believed his scriptural identity was. Also in the Church Age book, is the clear understanding of the ministry. In the Church Age book William Branham says, "Now this messenger of Malachi 4 and Revelation 10:7 is going to do two things. 1. According to Malachi 4 he will turn the hearts of the children to the fathers. 2. He will reveal the mysteries of the seven thunders in Revelation 10, which are the revelations contained in the seven seals. It will be these divinely revealed, mystery truths, that literally turn the hearts of the children to the Pentecostal fathers." Exactly so. An exposition of the seven church ages. 9. The Laodicean Church Age Rev. William Marion Branham book published and distributed December 1965. Once William Branham became a scientific study in order to develop sermons, many diverted away from that very purpose that he so clearly believed. It appears that humans did exactly what William Branham said not to do in his December 1965 book publication. Remember, William Branham felt the world was ending 12 years after releasing the book. That made the rapture just over 8 years away. He never said the mastering of every word he spoke was vital to receiving his message. He did clearly say what his scriptural call was. William Branham did keep pointing backwards to the day of Pentecost as his scriptural call. People had a hard time with that and felt there just had to be more. And when humans want more, they imagine more, and as God said in Genesis, as humans were building their Babel, Gen 11:6, and the Lord said, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." The imagination is a powerful tool and weapon, especially when truth must be protected. The imagination can create a complexity and believe it is the truth. But that doesn't mean it's true. J.L.E. notes. In the 1850s, the Seventh-day Adventists had what they called the Great Disappointment, when Jesus didn't arrive as prophesied. When the date was modified by a few months, they had their second disappointment. 1977 gave the message of William Branham its own great disappointment. And for those who did the math, 1987 was the Part 2 disappointment. When the computer software arrived, William Branham could now be scientifically studied and new definitions of his importance could be developed. It truly was children in a candy store. It became a great tool. Now it became possible to study all 56 times William Branham said, Tommy wrought, and since he said it, it was now spiritually acceptable to say it as a message believer and message minister. For those who believe every word said by William Branham was God speaking, now it was proper to say. Their argument against divine healing is thinner than the broth made out of a shadow of a chicken that starved to death. This statement used 26 times as a quote said by evangelist Billy Sunday 1862–1935, whom William Branham admired and mentioned dozens of times. Or, one of Sunday's favorite sayings is, I don't know any more about theology than a jackrabbit does about ping pong. Which is very similar to William Branham's, sometimes know more about God than a rabbit does about snowshoes. Said 25 times. Simultaneously, other Christian writers and characters of Christianity such as Martin Luther could also be studied in depth via the internet. The goldmine had arrived. Knowledge was definitely increasing at a hyper-rapid pace, and being used with every interest, bias, scientific research, theological research, and imagination possible. Daniel 12. 4 inches. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increase. A popular song called, She Blinded Me with Science, by the English musician Thomas Dolby, was released in 1982. The message software was much less than 10 years away. Many would argue, especially the critics which exited the message, that it has had the same outcome.